settle down, then we'll... Okay. Right. I'll call Angela Crawley to move the motion.
Thank you. I beg to move that this House has considered the cost of fuel on rural households and economies. It is a pleasure to serve under your chairship, Mr Betts, and to bring this debate to Westminster Hall this morning. Around 2 million people across the UK are reliant on off-grid gas supplies to heat their homes, including heating oil, liquefied petroleum gas and coal or biomass. According to the latest fuel poverty statistics, rural homes are much more likely to be reliant on off-grid gas and are more likely to be less energy efficient. This has made rural households across my constituency of Lanark and Hamilton East, and indeed across the UK, much more susceptible to the rising cost of fuel and the impact it has had. In 2022, households in rural areas had the highest fuel poverty rate of 15.9% compared to 11.1% for those in urban areas. Chair, in the summer of last year, I was contacted by my constituent, Roy from Lanark, who was worried about heating his home over the winter. In June 2022, the price of kerosene for Roy was £1 plus VAT per litre, with further increases on the horizon. With a minimum order of 500 litres as the industry standard, it was becoming unaffordable to keep up the price increases. For Roy, the £400 energy bill support, the Warm Homes discount and the alternative fuel payment simply does not go far enough. Paying for fuel costs up front with the exponential price increases that this winter has brought is a significant hurdle for rural households and communities. Issuing alternative fuel payments months after households have already put fuel orders on, credit cards have taken money out of their savings to cover the cost, simply does not make sense. And while moves... I will give way.
I'm grateful to her for giving way. I just wonder whether she'd agree with me that this delay in accessing the support for off-grid households, some households still haven't received their payments because they're having difficulty either with their electricity supplier or their landlord. That this delay is causing real hardship in rural areas, and it seems very unfair that people who have to pay for their energy costs up front, often the most vulnerable people, are still waiting in some cases for government support with their household bills.
I thank the Honourable Member for giving way, and she is absolutely right. While I welcome the fact the Government has recognised there is a need here, the response has been too slow, and the reality is people, especially pensioners, didn't have any more money in which to draw upon to pay up front. So this has had a knock-on effect on many households, but in particular many of mine in rural Clydesdale.
On that knock-on effect.
I will give way.
Can I commend the Honourable Lady for bringing this forward and agree with her? It's not just about fuel, Mr Chairman, it's also about the rural isolation. So does the Honourable Member not agree that rural isolation, social isolation in the farming community is only compounded by the fact that fuel costs have risen to the extent that going to Young Farmers Club events or similar events it doesn't boil down to finding time, it boils down to have the resources. And what we need to do, not just to look at the rural households and their fuel costs, but also we need to offer greater support to the farming community than it already currently receives.
Mr Crawley.
I thank the Honourable Member, as always, for his interventions, and he makes a very important point. I am truly blessed to be the representative for Lanark and Hamilton East, which represents a very wide and diverse community, including Clydesdale, the Clyde Valley, which has a large population of farms, and that community have been adversely affected by these costs. And there is, with all due respect to the Government, very little that can be done in retrospect to prevent the impact that this has had on their livelihoods. Issuing alternative fuel payments months after households have already put fuel orders on credit cards or taken money out of their savings to cover the cost doesn't make sense. And this is all well and good for households who have perhaps that wriggle room or some backup savings, but many, as we all know, do not. Rural households are often occupied by pensioners who will often be reliant on their pension as their only means of income. They may not have the means to stretch that budget any further. Today, there are still households who are eligible for the alternative fuel payment but have not yet received it, as we have heard from my honourable friends on this side of the House. The picture is even bleaker for those who are not connected to the gas grid and rely on electricity to heat their homes. They are not eligible for alternative fuel payments, This is despite the latest fuel poverty statistics indicating that households using electricity as a main source of fuel for heating has the highest likelihood of experiencing fuel poverty. I'd therefore like... I will give way. Yep.
She's been really generous, and I'm very grateful to her and congratulate her on securing a really, really important debate. Of course, families in rural communities have excessive fuel costs not just to heat their homes, but just to get about. There's no public transport for many of us in places like Cumbria, and even when there is, it's very, very expensive. So people need a car just to get to work, to study, to shop, and all the rest of it. And yet, whilst the government, the coalition government, brought in the Rural Fuel Duty Relief Scheme, only 10,500 residents in the whole of England qualify for it. So if you're from Brough or Appleby or Kirkby Stephen or Shap or Ambleside, Coniston, Hawkshead, and you need to travel to other places, you're not able to benefit from this. Would you advise, would the Honourable Lady advise the Minister to expand the Rural Fuel Duty Relief Scheme to make sure more communities can take advantage of it?
I thank the Honourable Member. I think he's made a pretty compelling case in his own right for that. And obviously I acknowledge that transport is devolved in Scotland, but he makes a very, very important point. I would therefore like to ask the Minister, what is she doing to ensure that those remaining households who are eligible for the payments receive them as soon as possible? And how does she intend to mediate the impacts of the rising costs of fuel that having on households who are off the gas grid and reliant on electricity to heat their homes? Chair, after facing increasing pressure to introduce the price cap to help domestic fuel customers with the high fuel prices, the government unsurprisingly fell on the side of big business. The government was too concerned with the impact that placing a price cap on heating oil and LPG would have on the market competition, rather than the impoverishment of households struggling to afford to heat their homes. My office has had the unfortunate job of forwarding the government's position onto concerned constituents who are struggling to keep up with the cost of being off the grid. One constituent said, "My concern is that my future financial security will be damaged just to keep off-grid gas suppliers making healthy profit." This year, I've been surveying my constituents to gather their experiences and opinions on the cost of living. When asked if there was one thing I could raise in Parliament for them, what would it be? An overwhelming majority of responses were concerned with the immense profits of energy suppliers. This week, there have been increasing rumours that a windfall tax the government had already put in place may well be relaxed. Can I therefore ask the Minister what she would say to my constituents, and I'm sure to many others, who are calling for more stringent welfare windfall tax regime to be implemented rather than relaxed? Chair, the winter may be drawing to an end, but the issue remains. For Roy, the price of kerosene in April is estimated to be around 71p per litre, excluding VAT. This month, according to the ONS, the price currently sits at around 81p. This is still 35p higher than this time last year, and 32% higher than it was before the pandemic in 2020. I'm sure the Minister will be quick to rhyme off all of the support measures the government has put in place during the crisis, and I do recognise that a number of measures have been put in place, but there are many who fell through the gaps, and Roy and many of my rural constituents are among those. However, the reality is the measures introduced simply do not go far enough for those who are off the grid. On top of the pressures of the rising cost of fuel, increases in the standing charges have been allowed to happen under the radar. Because of this, while households across the UK may receive some relief from the support measures put in place this winter, they are still feeling the pinch. Can I therefore ask the Minister, will the government commit to taking more meaningful action to reduce the exponential increases to the standing charges, and what support she is prepared to put in place to support those reliant on off-grid gas to heat their homes out with the context of the cost of living crisis? Chair, I move to close my contribution by discussing the picture in Scotland. The Scottish Government's recent statistics show that a third of households in remote rural areas are classified as experiencing extreme fuel poverty. In Scotland, 65% of rural dwellings are not within the coverage of gas grid, and our remote and rural communities are facing annual energy bills of more than double the UK average. Yet this discrepancy was ignored when the UK Government's energy support package this winter, and indeed the spring statement. Scotland is abundant in clean, green and renewable energy, and indeed oil, yet we cannot reap the benefits under Westminster control. Rural households have contributed so much to the export of renewable energy, pay the exponential price of being off the grid, and this cannot continue. Chair, in my opinion, Scotland needs the full powers of independence to truly equalise the energy price discrepancies between rural and urban communities, and I hope the Minister will respond with action.
The question is, this House has considered the cost of fuel and rural households and communities. Minister to respond.
Thank you, Mr Betts. And can I first of all say what an excellent speech and thought-provoking words have come from this debate. And I would like to express my gratitude to the Honourable Member for Lanark and Hamilton East for initiating this debate, and also for her additional work for supporting rural households and indeed communities. The Government has implemented several comprehensive support schemes across the United Kingdom to assist our rural households and communities. In particular, I would like to address the support being provided in Scotland, given the importance of these communities to Scotland and to the wider United Kingdom. I would also like to say that I am aware of the significant proportion of Scottish domestic properties not on the gas grid, which is estimated, as the Honourable Member said, at around 65% of homes in rural Scotland. These communities face significant challenges. Households in rural areas classed as extreme fuel poverty is around 3 times higher than the rest of Scotland. There are many factors which influence this, as the Honourable Members will know, including longer heating season, exposed conditions and historically poor housing stock. And as such, it is right that the Government's energy schemes have offered much needed support to rural communities over the winter in the face of the high energy costs. A range of support has been provided to rural communities, and in the form of both domestic and non-domestic support, particularly for off-grid users. The alternative fuel payment, or AFP, is available to households who use alternative fuels such as heating oil or LPG as their main heating source, which includes many Scottish rural households. Over 85% of customers in Great Britain will receive their payment automatically via their electricity supplier in February 2023. And those who have not received the payment automatically will need to apply to the AFP Alternative Fund via a short online form on gov.uk. Of course.
Helen Morgan.
Just on that point, I can't reiterate enough how many people might not be able to access that online portal. And I am aware that there is a phone number, but the messaging and the advertising of that phone number has been quite poor. So we've had constituents who've come to us and we've pointed them in the right direction, but then there will be people out there who aren't aware that they can access that support because they can't get online.
Minister.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for a very valid point. And we have been, as the Honourable Member points out, engaging in terms of we have the helpline, we also have a contact number, and we are trying to outreach as much as possible. And I would encourage all Honourable Members on the record to reach out and then try and encourage people to go through the website portal or indeed go through the helpline. The Energy Bills Support Scheme is being delivered as a £400 discount on electricity bills provided by suppliers in monthly instalments from October 2022 to March 2023. And it has been delivered to 2.6 households in Scotland. If I may use this opportunity, as March is almost over, as I have just said, I would like to urge members again to join the Government in highlighting to their constituents the importance of this traditional prepayment meter acting now to redeem their vouchers for this scheme. And electricity suppliers can reissue expired vouchers or lost vouchers, but all the vouchers must be used by the 30th of June when this scheme closes. Households in Scotland which use traditional prepayment meters and receiving EBSS in the form of voucher, it is vital that these households make use of the support being provided to them. And in our latest transparency publication, data shows that to the 1st of March, almost 340,000 vouchers in Scotland remain unused, which I believe goes to the Honourable Member's points on this. Households in Great Britain do not have a domestic electricity supply, such as off-grid households and park home residents, who have not been able to receive their support automatically, can now apply for their £400 support through the Energy Bill Support Scheme, alternative funding. And again, I would encourage households who are eligible to apply for their support before the scheme closes on the 31st of May 2023, either through the online application form on gov.uk or by calling our contact centre helpline. I would be happy to share this information with the MPs following the debate as well. The final aspect of domestic support that we have provided is the energy price guarantee. This scheme reduces electricity and gas costs for domestic customers, helping to lower annual bills, combat fuel poverty and maintain supplier market stability. This scheme covers approximately 2.5 million households across Scotland and 29 million households across the UK in total. And I hope the Honourable Member for Lanark and Hamilton East will have been pleased to hear the recent announcement that energy price guarantee will be kept at £2,500 for an additional 3 months from April to June, providing more savings for households. Of course.
Generous, and I'm very grateful to the comprehensive answers that she's giving. On the point of energy support, obviously businesses are seeing the support they're getting expiring, which is a problem in itself, which we could also address. But lumped under the category of businesses are our hospices, which have seen a 350% increase in their fuel bills. So not only are they getting insufficient now, they're going to get nothing soon. Is there something she might do to look at a special package to support hospices who clearly cannot turn the heating down?
Minister.
I'd like to thank the Right Honourable Member for that question and also give assurance that I am reaching out to a whole host of stakeholders and indeed talking to a variety of different groups to look at that very issue. But I would like to thank him for that particular question. Alongside the support that we're offering to households, I would also like to speak briefly about the winter period. The support offered by this the support offered by this package is worth £7.3 billion and is available across the United Kingdom. It is right that we balance continued support and energy costs with our duty to the taxpayer. And whilst energy prices are coming down, we must also recognise that prices remain above historic levels. For that reason, while the Energy Bill Relief Scheme is coming to an end, we have pledged to provide further support to non-domestic customers, including our farming industry from April onwards through the Energy Bills Discount Scheme. Within this support package, energy and trade-intensive industries and domestic customers on heat networks will receive a higher level of support than the baseline element. I would like to thank once again the Honourable Member for Lanark and Hamilton East, and give my assurance that I am reaching out to stakeholders across a whole variety, including suppliers, but also other stakeholders. I think this has been an incredibly important debate, and I would like to thank her sincerely for securing this debate. This campaign, it's important that we raise awareness around much needed rural communities during these challenging times. In addition, we have introduced the Energy Bill Relief Scheme in October 2022, and we will continue to run this by the end of the month. Yeah, okay.
Right, thank you, Minister. The question is that this House has considered the cost of fuel and rural households and communities. May that mean say aye, to the contrary no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. The sitting is suspended till 2:30 p.m.